Hello and welcome to a very special episode of The Cars That Made Us. We're here at Caffeine and Machine in Stratford-upon-Avon to have a chat with a man with an incredible job deep within the automotive world. Today's guest is the fantastic Sergiu Avram. Serge is the videographer for the YouTube channel of Autocar, the world's oldest car magazine. He's been working with them for just over a year and has overseen some awesome projects with the team as they grow their online presence. There is so much to the automotive world that you may not know, stuff that I didn't even know before this chat. And Serge has so many fascinating insights, stories, and perspectives to all of it. So I can't wait for you to hear what he has to say. If you enjoy this chat, like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes with industry insiders like Serge. And with that, let's get to it. The whole idea with this show is to look at the personal connections that we have to cars and how that fueled our enthusiasm for them. So, of course, it's quite a big step going from just being a car fan to wanting to work with them full time.
Yeah.
Tell me about that journey of how you managed to get to where you are now. Are there any key moments that you can put down in your life to being key points for when you really got into cars to get you here?
So, no, I would say I've not had a typical upbringing where, parents had a cool car and I was brought around in society. I think it was quite the opposite, really. So I grew up in Eastern Europe. And my dad being a lorry driver, we were around diesels a lot. We had multiple 3 Series, E Series, F Series. And through that, I've kind of learned how to work on them and kind of just enjoy driving for the sake of it. Not necessarily in an enthusiastic way. I would say my dad's not been an enthusiast, but he's taught me everything I know about cars. And kind of that like mechanical sort of, I have a mechanical love for cars more than anything. Like I'm an enthusiast and I love driving, but I can get excited about a big project, right? Which is really, really good way, I think, to go into the industry.
So as far as when you were young in Romania?
That's it.
What sort of cars would you be seeing on the road when you were growing up and that you would look twice at and go, oh, that's quite cool?
Well, especially back in the day, there wasn't many cars that would turn your head, right? Mainly because everyone's driving 1.9 CDI Golfs or BMWs, and obviously back home, fuel's a lot cheaper, and about 80% of the cars down there were diesels, and they probably still are. So in that sense, there wasn't anything that would turn your head unless it was something out of the ordinary. I never grew up around, England has a much nicher car culture when it comes to classical cars and cars that people have memories about. I have memories about a 1.9 CDI that my granddad had for about 20 years or whatever he had it for, So, it's definitely a bit different. So I would just say newer cars, right? Whatever it would have been new in that era, I would say about 2015, if it was a new F Series, 3 Series, whatever it would have been. So yeah, definitely not as exciting as here.
Yeah, it's always a funny thing, isn't it? I always find nowadays that the cars that are perhaps some of the least interesting or might be perceived as being the least interesting are the things that I love the most. Because although they might not be super quick, it's often the small and not necessarily exciting stuff. It's the unremarkable stuff which really innovates, because they have to be things that they've got to be exciting to the market because people have to want to buy them, like just everyday saloons. But they've also got to be cheap and they have to just run well. So there are certainly more things that they have to do to try and be appealing to people, which is where the true innovation comes.
Right.
Whereas lots of sports cars and supercars, not taking anything away from those things because they're awesome, they're incredible.
Yeah.
But they're made with unlimited money where they can basically do whatever they want. Would you say that, of course, growing up around a bunch of TDI Golfs, did that give you the opportunity to just let you get to know cars and the mechanics on a more personal level?
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify, it wasn't just Golfs, but the market in Eastern Europe is 80% German, right? Or was back in the day, still is a high percentage. But I'll say so because we use cars, right? I grew up thinking as cars of ways of making money, right? Like I said, my dad was a lorry driver. And also, you know, I see cars as basically something implemented in life, but not in an enthusiastic necessarily sort of way. I just see them as a method to make money and to get to point A to B.
So how did you go from seeing a car as a way to get from A to B to being someone who wants to write about them and film them for a living?
Like I said, my connection with cars was also always on that level. But when it came to university time, it was that sort of thing like, what would I like to do? I always liked cars. You know, I'm not saying I don't like cars and I'm only like a mechanic-minded guy. No, I do like cars. And I thought to myself, you know, I would like, because in my journalism course, we had many opportunities to go our separate ways and do our own things, our own research, right? And I thought, I'd like to do mine about cars. And I actually discovered this big market, and it's actually really interesting. Before starting this job, I was also a writer for about 6 months for an American company. So obviously that market's a bit different when it comes to cars. But it just went from there. I realized that working around cars and the fact that they don't necessarily have to be just for work, right? They don't have to be just boring or reliable things that will 100% do 250,000 miles if you look after them, right? They can be exciting and they can be just more than that. And I discovered that quite late, really. I'm not going to say, you know, I was like enthusiastic. No, I wasn't. It must have been about 18, 19. So yeah, around the same time I got my driving license, which also opens eyes, as you could imagine.
It really does. It really does. Yeah. So how did you find the jump from being a writer to videography?
It's very different. I liked writing, especially for the company I was working for, because it was remote, right? And it was quite, you know, the site I was working for, Top Speed, used to rank in about 25 million views or something like that per year. So it was quite high. So I enjoyed doing that, but I think it was in a way quite repetitive, right? Which is not what this job is now that I work videoing cars. It's very different on all levels. When I was working as a writer, I was having to always edit these photos and look at all these nice cars. And I'm here now actually working with these cars. And that actually makes a difference, right? And also the fact that they are completely different fields, right? They're both creative, obviously writing and video, but as you could imagine, they're quite different. And one has its ups and downs and so does the other. So, yeah.
Yeah, because there's no one same day in the office because you're always working on a different project. And, you know, the projects never last so long. You're just thinking about the same thing for ages. There are so many things circling around in your head. So as a result, you're just learning about the industry always, which is something that you would do for fun anyway.
Yeah.
But also you get to be on the inner circle behind the camera and now in front of it.
Yeah, which doesn't feel nice, by the way. I do not enjoy being in front of the camera.
Oh, really?
That is why I'm a videographer. No, you know, it's that sort of thing. I just don't really enjoy it. I don't think I thrive in front of the camera, clearly, as many people could see probably right now. Yeah.
So going from cameras back to cars then, or rather lorries, you said your dad used to be or is a lorry driver?
Still is.
Right. So would you ever just would he have a cab that you'd often be driven around in?
See, that's the thing. So my dad worked in Italy as a lorry driver for about 14-ish years. And in that time he had many different lorries. I can't tell you the exact names and models. Many Volvos, Renaults, whatnot. Stuff up to date, basically, up until imagine 2-3-year-old lorries at that time. And I used to go to, see him a lot, especially when I was younger. And during summer breaks, I used to get sent over there for 2-3 weeks and literally just go around with him. Go around Italy, live in a cabin, see what his life was like. And it's a really interesting way of life. And I kind of think that also maybe could have been something that would have sparked my interest in cars. on the side as well, because it's a completely different way of life, isn't it? If you think about it, because essentially what it is you exploring a country or a continent for that fact, because it wasn't just Italy secluded, and you kind of just get to know a place really well too, like Europe, Italy, on a geographical level.
Yep.
So that was really good.
Yeah, I mean, for the job, you have to travel around a lot. You came 2.5 hours to get here.
Yeah, I have.
Which is, I mean, incredible for you to just put so much time aside to just come here to do this. Would you say that the job, not only traveling, but also it sounds like your childhood, just going around in lorries, but mainly the job, would you say that with all the moving around you have to do for shoots, do you think that makes long distance travel something that you're not really so bothered about anymore?
I think so. And I mean, it's, if you think about it, you spend either commuting or going to shoots a lot back and forth, and I don't mind a longer drive, whatever, as long as the car is comfortable. But if you think about it, the time does add up after a while, right? You spend 5 hours going that place, and then you come back, and then you go back the next morning to work, and you commute another hour and a half, and the hours you sit behind the wheel just add up, and it kind of gets, I wouldn't say boring in a way, but obviously gets repetitive.
I think driving to and from locations is something that people don't necessarily think about when they think of being a videographer or being a car journalist.
Yeah.
From your experience over the past year and a half, what are things of the job, what are parts of the job that people don't expect to be a part of the job? What took you by surprise when you started?
You can't just film and edit, right? You have to be more proactive in your work in order to get the best result. I can't just expect, for example, my presenter and the people I'm working with to do all the work, right? If I want this best product, I can't just show up, do my thing, and then go home and put it together. I need to be involved in the whole process, from planning and discussing the projects, ideas. It can be big or small, to actually be involved in the publishing process, thumbnail suggestions, descriptions, titles. So I think the main thing is it's a whole thing, right? You're involved in the whole process. Just because I'm a videographer doesn't mean I just film and edit, right? That I can, but there is a real benefit in being involved in the whole process that I think, young people that are looking to get into the industry should bear in mind. Another thing that this job took me by surprise is you need to genuinely have it planned. And obviously this goes without saying to the experienced guys, but you don't just show up and do it. You don't do that.
No.
You can't do that.
Well, speaking about the hand you play in videos then, what's your long-term goal with Autocar? What would you like to achieve with this?
That's a good question. I would like to be involved in, obviously, like I said earlier, my job is to video stuff, so I don't hold any editorial power, and obviously rightly so when there are people above me who actually know what they're doing. But in the future, when I do get more experience and I've been in this industry a lot longer, I would like to have a bit more editorial choice, right, for launches, say, and be able to actually plan the big stuff, right? Say we want to film 2 cars. Say you're my boss. I just go to him, I suggest it to him, and then we can talk about it, and then we can plan a date, and then it will be like a me and him sort of thing. It's an American lorry going past, I think.
How can you tell?
It's like the engine braking, the engine braking they have.
Yeah.
I don't think they have American lorries in the UK, do they?
No, I've only ever seen cab over engine lorries here.
I didn't mean American lorries, but like this sort of big diesel lorry going braking past. But yeah, so if, on a smaller video like that, but he brings in the big projects, he brings in the big stuff, mainly because he's contacted, right? He is approached by manufacturers and they go, right, we have this event, this press launch, we do this. But in the future, to come back to the point, I would just like to be, more involved in the process of actually choosing and planning these videos, right? More than I am now and more than I'm capable to do now. And not because Autocar's not letting me, but obviously from an experience and editorial point of view as well.
Yeah.
What is relevant? What should I choose? And is it wise to approach this say, narrative on the video, for example, you know, which right now I don't do, and I still need help to do.
Yeah.
Electric cars, right? I want to get your opinion on
Okay.
electric cars nowadays. What do you think of them? Obviously, now they're not controversial / niche anymore, and
No.
we kind of accepted the fact that they're growing, and I'll kind of say rightly so. You know, I mean, they're set to take over all that shebang. What's your take on them? What's your views on them?
So part of me misses the time when we could just make fun of EVs because all there was the G Whiz, and of course Top Gear would just take the piss out of that, and caravans all the time. As far as nowadays is concerned, I certainly think that things should have been done differently with just dealing with emissions problems and climate change. This is something that Adrian Newey said that I completely agree with. Instead of world leaders telling manufacturers that they have to start building electric cars, they should have said to manufacturers, to Stellantis, VW, and General Motors, we need to move away from fossil fuels, come up with some ideas, and then come back to us with what you think should be a good substitute. And I imagine if that happened 15 years ago, 20 years ago,
Right.
they would have come back to say, let's do some sort of biofuel related thing, or something that can keep internal combustion technology, the thing that the industry has been refining for years, the thing that, well, yeah, an entire field exists for.
No.
Because right now there's this completely different technology that not only diminishes the interest a lot of enthusiasts might have for it, but also is something that is so different to the engineering of combustion engines. So a manufacturer has to completely change everything about how they operate and how they build a car and how that car is designed. And we're beginning to see the problems with that now because we've had, world leaders and, groups like the EU saying we've got to move to electric, but all of a sudden their big manufacturers are being not necessarily put out of business, but I mean, we don't know about VW, but they are losing lots of business to Chinese automakers because the industry that these European manufacturers have pioneered is all of a sudden just being pulled from under their feet.
Yeah.
So the other issue that I find with them is that I don't think it's the long-term solution. I did a story with a senior design engineer at Polestar just over a year ago now, and even he, being someone who works for Polestar, says that there's a 50% chance, or at least there's a pretty good chance, that hydrogen is the future.
Right. That's interesting.
In the
actually.
long term.
Yeah.
Battery-powered cars will be a solution in the short term, maybe the next couple of decades. But honestly, right now, hydrogen is in the phase where EVs were 15 years ago, when there was just the Tesla Roadster and the G-Wiz rolling around.
Yeah.
Personally, from a position of passion for cars and for the motoring industry, I would have liked to have seen biofuels. I know Porsche have a biofuel that they actually run in some 911 Cup.
Yeah, they do.
But of course, the difficult bit is scaling up production, which they can't do.
Yeah.
So my perspective on EVs is that it is one piece in a huge problem that has been stirred up through mismanagement.
That's a really interesting take on it, because I do agree to some extent, right? I really like EVs. I think I've driven a few, both through work and in my personal life, and I think they can be very great, especially for anything but towing / commercial use-ish. I'll get back to that in a second.
Okay.
And, well, motorway and anything, like in towns, right? They're brilliant, and I mean, I drove in a EV here today, and the thing with them is I have a problem with EVs being made because of they're not sustainable to the environment, especially the mining, right? You know, we have all those controversies of, you know, people in third world countries, you know, being absolutely rinsed for these batteries and for these materials, which is I think that's by far the worst problem EVs are facing, right? But also, I don't have a problem with EVs as cars. I have a problem about what they're proposed, right? They're proposed as the way to the future, and they could be, but I don't think they are now, because the problem with them is where the electricity comes from. I did a project a while back at uni, and this won't be accurate to any degree now, because it was 2021, 2020 maybe even, and I was a student. I was just using like just my stuff, but you know, a lot of the electricity probably still comes from burning fossil fuels and using non-renewable. And it's that sort of whole thing where there could be, you know, it's like that sort of thing Elon Musk proposed, where he'll build like a 200-mile long by 200-mile bloody solar panel range in like the middle of the desert in America, which could power the whole of the United States. I mean, if that could happen, that's great. But then again, the material used to make that sort of thing, and now just that, you know, it's that sort of cat and mouse game. They're not sustainable. But on a, like you said, on a smaller scale, you know, if say you are fortunate enough to have solar panels and you can get enough electricity to generally charge your car, there you go. That is it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's also the argument. I used to work at Amazon, and they used to have a lot of electric vans. Hence I said commercial-ish, right?
Yeah.
Those vans, they were Mercedes Sprinters. I can't remember what they were, but they were electric vans. And obviously from a business perspective, they're great because you charge them up. They had a big solar like panel field, right? So obviously they would have cheap-ish electricity to charge these batteries with. And also there's no maintenance on them, right? These cars are being racked around by delivery drivers every day, basically 24/7, right? And they don't have maintenance, and they have no emissions, and they can be great, but I think that we're being pushed a bit too hard towards it.
Yeah. Now, one application of EVs that I can absolutely vouch for is with microcars. So I did a video about it was a part of a longer episode, but it was about the Renault Twizy. And around the time of putting that together, I was in Amsterdam, where there are loads of not only, of course, bikes, but a ton of microcars, Renault Twizys and Opel Rocks and that sort of thing. And I think they're fantastic because they can't fit a combustion engine. They're too small.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, you know, the average amount of people that will be in a car is, I can't remember if this is for the country or for the Europe or for the whole world, but only around 1.4 people would be in a car on average. So these are numbers from Renault. So I believe that it would have either been in France or across Europe.
Okay.
But there'd only be an average of 1.4 people in a car. So as a result, you just need something for one person and then every now and then two.
Yeah.
And let's be real, 90% of the time, the most amount of luggage someone would have in a car is a couple of shopping bags. So you need space for one person and occasionally two, and room for some shopping bags. And when you're in a city, it's great to have a small car which you can easily drive around, and EVs are perfect for that. Just small city driving.
Yeah. No, I agree with your point completely.
So certainly, you're right. There are small applications that EVs are great for, but on a whole international scale, it's not feasible.
No, and you know, just to wrap up the point you brought up about my point about the EVs, I agree with your point that the most economical thing we can do now, and it's no easy task obviously, but make some sort of more reliable combustion fuel, right, of some sort, whether it's what's the one Porsche's making called again?
I'm not sure
biofuel?
the name of it. It's some sort of biofuel,
whatever, and just get a already existing car and run it till it dies. Absolutely run its wheels off, drive it to 150,000 plus miles.
Yeah.
And then it goes off the road and it can be made into something else. I think that's by far the most sustainable thing we can be doing right now, because putting these big heavy things on the road is not good. And it also brings all these sort of implications as well. You know, EVs are heavier and they're putting more tear on the roads, and the roads are becoming worse, and that's also becoming an issue, apparently. I've read it somewhere.
We know that British roads are bad enough quality. I'm not sure they can take much more.
Yeah, no. And I also agree with your point. You know, I drove here today in a Skoda Enyaq, right? Which is a nice car, all in all. But it's big and it weighs 2.2 tons. And it's the sort of thing you would see in London a lot. And I think, why do you need this in London? And obviously there's bigger cars that people are driving. And I think it's just this thing of these massive things. And people just overbuy, right? And then don't actually end up using all the capacity or all the usage a SUV can offer, right? And then, you know, they're just lugging around more weight, you know, and more space, which burns more fuel or uses up more electricity, which just becomes less sustainable. So I do agree with that part as well, definitely.
So since starting this job, you work with cars all the time, and as we've established, there's no one same day at the office. You're working with different cars all the time.
Yeah.
How has your perspective on the industry and different types of cars or even manufacturers changed since starting this job?
Well, my opinion on manufacturers hasn't changed much since joining the job. You know, it's not relevant to the job per se. It's just where the industry moves. Like, you know, I'm not going to chuck manufacturers under the board here, but, you know, we know manufacturers are coming up right now, others are going down. So my views are kind of in line with that. It doesn't have anything to do with my job. But the more I work with cars, and obviously we are a journalistic publication, we do magazine, we do web, we do YouTube, and we report on new cars, literally, like what is yet to come on the road. I think they are becoming expensive, right? Obviously. But I think manufacturers, you raised this earlier, they're in a race to outdo each other and to bring in the technology, and that just ends up, you know, raising the car's cost exponentially.
Yeah.
And I you know, I was driving a BMW 235, like the Grand Coupe version, a while ago, and it costs a bunch of money, right? And what I realized about it is I kind of felt like BMW was moving away from handling dynamics, right? That they were quite known for in their M cars, right? In order to put in all this tech in their cars, you know, like if you set in the sat nav, if you use the inbuilt sat nav in the thing and you're through town, it like gives you a 3D hologram of where you can go, and it literally shows you in real time on the screen what lane you can be in, and it draws a line for you. And you think, great, that's great, but why, you know, this is expensive. This is why this car is worth £55,000 or whatever it's worth, you know? And in reality, the driving dynamic of that car is not on par with the rivals. It really isn't. And obviously that's a performance mod, but that can apply to new cars too.
Yeah.
You know, ADAS can be good, and there's an Alpine pulling up. I think it's a A110R.
Has to be an A110.
It is an A110. No, it's not an
Beautifully driving thing.
Blanc white, I think. That's the model of the colour. I'm pretty sure. French people.
Great car. Fantastic car.
We filmed it last week, didn't we?
We did.
Very good.
Coming out soon.
Out soon.
As you know, it'll probably be out by the time you watch this video.
Yeah, it probably will be.
So, you raise a point about the quality of BMWs lately. I'd like to chime in on this, particularly with M-spec cars.
Okay.
So around 2016, Hyundai actually poached either the lead designer or, I mean, I'll have some pop up on the screen so people know who this guy is and his position, but he was a very important guy in BMW M. But he was been basically one of the lead people responsible for a lot of the great M cars over the past 20 odd years. But of course he's now with Hyundai, and he is you know, holding the reins of the N division over there.
Yeah.
And he's one of the big reasons why the quality of Hyundai's hot hatches have been just going like that over the past few years.
Yeah.
And I think the BMW M is not necessarily bad now. However, I think they've lost a lot of direction and they've lost their way because this guy is no longer championing the division.
Yeah. The thing with what I can definitely see what you think that, and I sort of agree to an extent. I'm not going to sit here and say BMW is what it used to be. It isn't, but it's that sort of thing that, like, take the new M2, right, for example. You know, it's on paper, it's bulkier, it's bigger, and it's a bit more unnecessary than the old F series, right, which is my favorite M2. But yeah, a lot of journalists, like proper respected journalists, including my boss, Matt Pryor. No, I don't think he's reviewed actually, but we had people review it in our company, and also people like Chris Harris drive the new M2, and they go, yeah, it's, you know, it's all these things and it's a behavior and whatever, but it is better. So there can be two sides of the story, I think, 100%. Not the same thing can be said about the M5, which is a whole issue in itself, but...
Weird one.
Yeah.
People at Autocar seem to like it, though, which seem, you know, they acknowledge the fact that it's perhaps an unpopular opinion or a divisive opinion.
I for one, I haven't driven it, so I can't give my own opinion on it. But from what I've heard from my colleagues that have driven it, it is still a good car. And that's the thing, BMW and German manufacturers still make good cars. They're not as good as they used to be, they still make good cars. The new M5 is probably a very good car still. But like you said, it's lost scope of what, you know, and this doesn't come out of thin air. BMW doesn't just go, right, we're going to make this be like turd, right? We're going to make this bad, and we're going to make this weigh 2.5 tons. And, you know, it comes in with a lot of the stuff. And, you know, at the same time, other manufacturers are finding ways around it-ish. So there's two sides of the coin. But yeah, I kind of see your point about BMW, and I think German cars, and I think you also raised this earlier, it is to do with the uprise of lower players in the market rising up, like Chinese EVs. You know, they come in and they start chipping away. You know, some Chinese EVs are good, some of them are trash. Yeah, that is the reality. They just literally come in and start chipping away from these big manufacturers, and what they have to do is start making compromises. And one of the most obvious compromises they've been making, from my experience, German manufacturers, is one, handling. Yep. But in BMW's case, they make utterly kind of stiff and like lifeless. I've had experienced a new 1 Series, which wasn't a performance model, it was just a 120. Not I anymore, they've removed the I. I found that to be a very good, comfy car. But again, it was very stiff, and it was just, you kind of just sit on it and you kind of float around. But in terms of like handling and like the M235i I mentioned, the one I mentioned earlier, you know, that's got all the speed and traction you need. Yep. But that doesn't mean it's exciting. I'm pretty sure when you put it in sport mode, it turns the ESC off, but it doesn't matter because you don't need it, because it's just got that all-wheel drive system just keeps it in check, and it's just unbelievable. But yeah, that's not exciting, because you're just kind of just floating around still, even if you have 300 horsepower.
Do you think this marks a shift in the industry from manufacturers wanting to be engineering innovators to becoming technology companies? With, you know, you're talking about the heads-up display and all the fancy stuff that it does.
Heads-up display also plays into it, yeah.
And of course, Tesla, as you know, their interiors have very much become a benchmark with just big screens and minimalism and those sort of things. But also, companies like Polestar, you ask them and they don't consider themselves an automotive company. They consider themselves a technological company.
Yeah. No, I don't think it relates to that, you know. I just think I find it easier to apply it to performance cars because the evidence is bigger. And so my point earlier, you know, like if you look at any performance car that's been released, we should, you know, we're not just going to slate BMW and whatever, you know, we can go, it's just in general, you know, they've gotten heavier, and to compensate that, they've just added more power. And obviously they haven't gotten heavier because the manufacturer just wanted to get heavier. It's all these, you know, crash standards and all this technology that, one, they're being imposed to put on, and two, they want to put on, you know, the stuff that they don't really need to include, like I said. So I think a simple way for a manufacturer to, you know, overdo all this added weight to a car. It's just to add power to it. But obviously,
Right.
when you have more weight, you also have to tweak with the suspension and or the suspension geometry and all the elements I don't understand in a car. And it's not the same. I would rather have a 200 horsepower, 1,000 kilogram car than have a 2-ton, 500-600 horsepower SUV, right?
Yep.
For me personally, because I just know that'll be more enjoyable, and that's just how it is. And I think an easy way for a manufacturer to compensate for the added weight that they have put on, just add more power. That's it. Off you go.
Okay.
Add more power. Manufacturers are squishing 400 horsepower of 2-liter engines now, aren't they? For a while, AMG and also Golf's catching up. Audi's there with the 2.5, and these small engines can now, Volkswagen's put in the Golf R engine into SUVs now, aren't they? A 2-liter, and they still go. So
Yeah.
they're just adding power to them. And
Mercedes C63 AMG 4-cylinder engine,
yeah,
which is to many sacrilege.
it's coming. The V8's coming back, isn't it?
Yeah, they announced they're actually
Yeah, they
developing a
have.
brand new V8,
Yeah.
which I was amazed by because I didn't expect that to be happening. But I think that is evidence of the fact that even the manufacturers don't believe in 2030 or 2035 being realistic for everything new being an EV.
I'm not sure about, I'm not an expert in the regulations, emissions of the industry, but I just think technology is getting better, right? I think that Mercedes just came up with a way to implement the V8 back into the C63. I think they saw it as, right, we have these targets for this car. It probably will weigh this much, so it has this much power to, still be on paper what we want it to be. But in order to achieve this, in compliance with regulations and emissions and whatnot, we have to put a 4-cylinder in it. And Mercedes probably thought, we're going to keep it alive, right? We're going to put a 4-cylinder in it.
Yep.
I doubt anyone in the AMG division was pleased to have a C63 with a 4-pot. But then they came along and thought, hold on, actually, we can make the V8 work. And obviously, I don't know what regulations and standards and what they have to do to these engines to make them work. I have no idea on that part. But I think they came out and went, we can make them work with, our existing deadlines and regulations and whatnot, and we're going to make it work. And yeah, I think that's great on their behalf. Can't really think about any other. Well, there definitely are other manufacturers that have compromised like that.
Compromises aren't necessarily a bad thing.
No,
Talking about that A110
it's a great car,
4-pot.
as it should be. It would not have any other engine in it, any bigger. It doesn't make sense.
And as we've established, the A110 is very much what Lotus used to be. Light, small fun.
Yes.
Being in stuff like the Emira, it's just too big, and you can't enjoy it as much at slower speeds as you can the A110.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't need speed to have fun, or at least I'm not chasing speed for fun.
Yeah.
The fun is just
That's
in
true.
the enjoyment of the drive, and you don't have to have a big engine for that. So it can be something 4-cylinder that just has a well-tuned suspension, is small, and just feels like and can go a bit, of course. But like minis, I love minis because they're just small, well-tuned, and they're fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. And do you know what? I love small engines. It's just something about this small power unit that's light and physically small, making a considerable amount of power. I had the privilege to drive some newer performance hot hatches.
Yeah.
And, say the new Golf R, that's a phenomenal car that is blistering quick for what it is. It's bloody rapid, right?
Are you talking about the 8.5, Mark 8.5?
Yeah, 8.4. So the new one that came
Yeah.
out, the updated 333 brake horsepower or 328 brake, the new power unit. I think they share it with Audi. I'm pretty sure.
They will do, yeah. They
Yeah.
will do.
Yeah, that one. You know, I would rather have that car than, I don't know, a V8. Well, obviously, depending what V8 we're talking about. But, you know, it's that sort of thing, like, small engines are not all bad.
No.
It's just, again, regulations, they do sound a bit rubbish. The Golf R's not so bad for it, but like BMW and that 2 Series they have, and the augmented sound, it's a bit... It's not great. You have to open all the windows and open the sunroof, and then you go, I can't really hear it now, but you close everything up, and it's just like, it's just not done right? And it's no easy feat, you know. They're trying their best to keep up and to keep these models alive, right? Which I think we should be grateful for, because
they want it just as badly as we do.
Yeah, of course they do. You know, they're not people that want to make the industry bad, but they're just being restricted, right, by these imposing standards. So they come up with innovative ways, and I think our feedback is constructive. I would like to think I'm not a journalist. I don't write and critique cars on a professional level like that. I'm just recording stuff. But I think, say, with my comment about the augmented sound from BMW, there's room for improvement. But if it is done right, say, however it could be done right, whether it's more subtle, more changing, more modes like the Ioniq 5 has, the Ioniq 5N, you can change it a few things. You know, if it's done right, I don't mind it. It improves. I think Aston Martin's quite good for it, and it's obviously they're different level, Aston Martin to BMW, but they do it right. You know, I'm pretty sure the Vantage has augmented noise, but it's done so subtly in all applications, and you go, that's fine, I guess, you know.
Yeah. The one problem I have with augmented noise is just the fact that it's not real. I would rather just have a quiet car.
Then you can turn it off.
Yeah.
Give the driver the option to customize it. Give him, you know, the option to change it, turn it up, down, off, or, you know, whatever. I think it's better to give the option to do all these things than not have it, right? It's cool.
For sure.
It's cool, right? Isn't it? Yeah.
You've driven so many different things, particularly after starting an Autocar. Do you have any particular favorites?
I definitely do. One of my favorite cars that I've driven from Autocar has been the Dacia Duster. It's been the Dacia Duster.
Really?
Excellent, yeah. And I'm not saying that because I'm Romanian. Obviously, Dacia's not as much affiliated with Romania as they have been before. But no, it's just great. It's this SUV that is built for purpose. It's still quite small. It's economical. It still pulls 50 to the gallon. And I think I had it in the 1.2 manual trim. And I've really, really enjoyed it. It's just a nice car. It's not overwhelming. It's not expensive. It has all you need. You know, Dacia they're not like cheaping. Obviously, they're like cutting out on like the interior quality and whatnot, but they don't add all this unnecessary stuff.
Yeah.
They just give you a car. Here you go. Here's a car. We had an off-road test not long ago. We had a Land Rover Defender, a diesel. We had an Ineos Grenadier, and we had a Toyota. I forgot which Toyota we had.
Land Cruiser?
It was a Land Cruiser, the new Land Cruiser. And the Dacia could do essentially everything they could do, obviously apart from the slopes and mostly down to the tyres, because those were... And it's that sort of thing, like this car cost half, and even if not a third of some of what these things cost.
Yep.
The interior space is cramped, but it's still plenty. Why do you need to buy that in this? Right? You know, so I think Dacia is a great proposition for money. Another car that I've driven, I've really enjoyed, definitely has to be the Skoda Superb diesel. And if anyone here is a reader, listener, whatever of Autocar, they know it's a very highly praised car. You know, it's a 5 out of 5 stars. And I don't consider it one of my favorites because my colleagues said, oh, it's great. I genuinely think it's built for purpose. And I think it comes back to, earlier we spoke about my beginning in cars and when I was little, and that's what that car does. It's, you can get it with a 2-litre diesel that does 50. You can get it as an estate, which is great, spacious, comfy, beyond belief, right? Massaging seats, all this comfy gear. It's slightly a bit too loud at speed, but apart from that, it's excellent and it's affordable. I don't know what they start at, the diesel models, but it's probably in like the 30s. Considering you can spec an A6 TDI to like 70 grand. I doubt that car's going to be much better than the Superb. at half the price. So that's also been one of my favourites as well.
Well, I mean, you drove here in an Enyaq that you said you're actually not huge on.
No, I'm not huge on it, no. Well, this is, the one I have right now is the VRS version. And the reason I'm not huge on it, it's not because it's electric. I like electric cars. Not great for motorway, which I do a lot at work. It's a bit frustrating. Public charging, also extortionate nowadays. I looked around here, it's like 90p per kilowatt hour. You know, it is more expensive, arguably, than filling up a petrol tank.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I don't
Sorry,
like this
very
one.
quickly, do you remember back when an incentive to get an EV was that you have to pay basically nothing to recharge it? Where did that go?
It's just the demand. Everyone, you know, the big money players have gone in and, you know, saw everyone getting EVs. So there's money to be made.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it's a bittersweet thing because, you know, EV charging, range anxiety is kind of vanished because there's EV chargers everywhere.
Yep.
Like you can literally not even need to look at a map for them. You can just drive on the motorway and just be assured there's going to be an EV there.
Okay, so you've given us your best two cars. You've got the Dacia Duster and the Skoda Superb VRS.
Yes. I've not driven the
Oh no, just the normal version.
That's a TDI version, yeah.
TDI. What two cars that you've driven from being with Autocar do you think could use some work?
I'm not thinking about which car, what can I throw under the bus. I'm just genuinely thinking because one kind of pops to mind. It's a Vauxhall Mokka.
Right.
There's the X, the electric again. I just didn't think it was great. It's I don't know the price of it, but I remember it's quite expensive for what you get.
Yeah.
And also the Stellantis products, they can be good, but they're a bit of, if, you know, this is obviously, they don't advertise it as this, but they're a bit of rinse and repeat with their ideas and, you know, their interiors. And
what manufacturers should people be watching out for?
It's a good question. I don't think there's anything on the radar that's not out there already. I think some Chinese EVs are coming to the market and they're generally quite good. Like the, what is it? Is it Geely G6?
Yes. Geely own a bunch of things.
Not Geely. What is starting with G? I'm being very brain fogged right now. What are they called? Xpeng, right? Xpeng G6. I was going to drive one to here actually, but you know, I've seen very positive stuff about that car, you know, and you know, you got to take these like entry-level cars with a pinch of salt because, you know, you look at Omoda as well or JQ, and you know, they're not getting these sort of reviews as, you know, Xpeng getting with the G6.
Yeah.
So I think that market, you know, if you can put aside the badge and, you know, the names and whatever, I think they could be cars to watch out for because they're improving.
I'm curious to see what's going to be happening with McLaren over the next couple of decades.
Yeah.
You drive their cars. I mean, the 750S, if I remember correctly, made its way onto the list of Evo magazine's cars of the year. So, fantastic driving thing. But from my experience, particularly regarding reliability of their cars, they're still very clearly very new to the sports and supercar world. They're being put up against Astons, Ferraris, Lamborghinis.
I'd like to butt in and say, out of pick Aston, Ferrari, Lambo, and McLaren, I'd pick McLaren.
Why?
I'd just pick McLaren. I think they don't have the variety of cars now. All the other three manufacturers, apart from McLaren, have SUVs or FUVs.
Thank God. I remember one of their owners, or like the guy who runs McLaren Automotive, was like, "We're never making an SUV."
Yeah.
And then it's like,
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a lot of cars on sale. What do they have on sale? They have the Artura, different variations of that. They've got the 750S.
They've got the McLaren GT, which isn't really a Grand Tourer, but it's called the GT.
That's slightly old news now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have the new, like, 12-cylinder Vanquish competitor they came out with. That's still a V8, but that's not making a lot of waves. And also they got the P1, so they don't have a lot of cars. But
well, no, they're not mass producing the P1 though, are they? It's the W1 that you're thinking
W1, sorry.
It's like their new flagship.
Yeah, I meant the W1.
Yeah, it's different iterations of a similar thing because they just don't really have the money to do a bunch of crazy different stuff. So they'll make one thing and do a bunch of different versions of the same thing.
That's just fit for purpose, isn't it?
It is.
There you go. And I've only filmed one McLaren through Autocar a few times, and it's about 3 times now. I think it's the Arturo.
Yeah.
It's a 10 out of 10 car. And obviously we're talking about expensive cars here. We're not talking about your average Ford. So of course they're going to be good at that money. Let's not be arrogant. But every time my colleagues drive them, and I've been in a car a few times, they go, wow, this is special.
Right, okay.
This is special, right? Compared to, we had a test where I said with the Aston Vantage V8, Ferrari Roma, also V8, and then that, which obviously the Arturo is a different proposition to them. It's mid-engine, not front engine, and it's got a smaller, racier engine, but still, that was the car for me of that test, for example, For me, the most attractive thing about a car is to be fit for purpose, If I spent a week with, the Performance 2 Series, like I said earlier, that doesn't make my favorite cars. But is it better than those cars? Yes. It's the most expensive. It's more expensive than the Duster, than the Enyaq, not the Enyaq, the Superb, the Swift. It's like, starting to reach 60.
Is that an M2? I think an M2 just pulled out.
I think that's an F-Series M2.
Oh.
So obviously that's an objectively better car. Right?
Yeah.
It's a more expensive, but it's not as built for purpose as the other ones, That 2 Series 235 has to catch up in terms of dynamic, which is why you buy that car.
Yeah.
You don't buy that car to just, you understand why a 220 would be, like I said earlier, built for people that might just want a new German car to go from there to there reliably, comfortably, right? Who buys a 235, right, which is a performance model, 300 horsepower all-wheel drive car? Just go, that is a different conversation, and that doesn't do it as well as the competitors. It still does it quite good. Of course it does. It's a bloody new car, and it is still good. But like I said, being in this job and being able to put cars side by side, right, drive them somewhat, relatively close to each other, and compared to the Golf R, it doesn't really compare dynamically.
No.
The M2. I've not driven the 135. I imagine it's slightly nippier and a bit more agile than the 235 Grand Coupe, but I mean, it's the same powertrain. And it does not compare to it compares to it, but it's not, the Golf is better. The powertrain in the Golf.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what they managed to do from the Mark 8 being a car that, it's difficult to stand up next to the Mark 7, but
yeah,
the Mark 8 seemed to be pretty unimpressive, but then the 8.5 was really brought it back around. Do you think that is going to be enough for VW with hot hatches? Because I know Honda have stopped making the Civic Type R.
Yeah,
that's done for, although they are bringing in the Prelude now, but it's a different body shape.
Yeah.
Do you think the Golf GTI has longevity?
I think so. I think the GTI is also kind of falling into the trap of, obviously gains more weight over the years due to all these factors to do and not to do with Volkswagen. So they kind of compensate with adding more power and more. The GTI is still a great car. I've not driven a Golf GTI. I've driven a Polo GTI, like I said, which has the old interior. It doesn't have the new Mark 8.5 interior. It's got the old Mark 7 interior.
I really like those.
I like those. And it's a bit more modern and a bit more touch. It's just great. It does the job really, really good. I think they'll keep it because they are good cars. You buy a GTI, you buy an R because you want that extra bit from your car. And I think like those cars do give it to you. I think the Golf R is a phenomenal one 2-car garage. If you need something that you can generally cruise around in every day, has, like you said, the average car has 1.4 people in it. Has enough room for luggage. It's a Golf, right? It's got 5 seats if you need to go somewhere, and it's relatively economical. If you behave in the motorway, you will get low 40s. It's good, but yet again, if you do want it to go, it will go. So there you go. That is still a Golf, which is great, but it goes.
Yeah. So to round off then,
to round off.
I imagine you'll give a very interesting answer to this. If
Right.
you had to have 3 cars from any time period, money doesn't matter,
Okay.
as your 3-car garage, what would you choose?
I feel like my answers might be a little bit mainstream / your typical answers, but I'm going to go and say them. I'd have 3 cars, so I would have a Alpina D3, a 2016 model, right? So the F series, the 350 horsepower, that is a 1-car garage, like 2-car garage, whatever. That is the definition of it. I would have, on the side of that, I would have a super / hypercar, and I'm kind of torn in between a few things. You said money doesn't matter. I love any iteration of the W16 from Bugatti that have 1500 horsepower, so the newer ones and the Chiron, whichever one that is, whichever form, the Mistral, the Chiron, the whatever is, the Bolide.
Yeah.
The Bolide's a bit different, but whichever one it is, maybe I'll take that. Or, also I look at Ferrari now, like I said, the Artura. Artura is up there. It's brilliant. It's all you need. That could also be in the conversation when I'm thinking about, the sports car, supercar, hypercar. And for the 3rd car, I'm not the biggest SUV guy, but I feel like it has to be an SUV. So I'd say something that is very capable off the road, or a Range Rover Defender.
Oh, I'd
Or
go for
a Land Rover Defender.
Interesting. You said Defender or Range Rover. No love for the Discovery.
I'm not. It's not a niche market anymore. I'm just not. Everyone. I don't think everyone has to have an opinion about everything, right? I don't have an opinion about them, which is obviously, I'm in the car industry and they kind of should be. I think they're cool cars. I don't have a problem with them. They're cool. They're keeping the spirit alive. People are enthusiastic about these things, and our people our age are, but they're just not my thing. I don't have an opinion on them. I'd probably choose, to come back to the main point, I'd probably choose a new Defender diesel, like a short wheelbase, a 90 wheelbase, with some beefy off-road capabilities. That's it. That's my 3-car garage. That covers everything. Touring, and also the Alpina could be a new one as well. I've not been in either of those cars, but I imagine the F Series and the new ones are quite good. So I think I ticked all the boxes: speed, long distance / reliability, and just off-road / towing.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't need it. I don't need to. I'm good with a rugged Patrol from '95. I've got a Suzuki Vitara back home in Romania, which is about 95 model. It costed about 600 quid. It's got a carburetor that the spring is very stiff and is very hard to drive, and it's just a brilliant little thing. It's like 900 kilograms, so that's really cool to have off-road as well. Not saying I put that in my old-time car garage, but it's that sort of argument, if I had to make a garage, I'd make 2 cars, which would probably be the Alpina and Artura.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, I mean, it's certainly a thing, isn't it? After a certain point, then you're just having too many, and then you can't. I think it's good to be slightly limited by choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Pryor was asking me about this with guitars. Can you have too many?
Ooh, good question.
Because he said that, yes, you absolutely can have too many cars. He said anything more than 8 cars, then you're just not...
You're not using them.
Yeah.
I agree with him. I'll say that number is lower in my eyes, but I see why he would say it. He's into a slightly different market. He's more of a somewhat classical guy with his cars.
Yeah, I mean, his daily is either a Defender or an A2.
Yeah, the
which
A2
gets
diesel.
80 miles a gallon.
90. He has hyper mild. It's 94 officially.
How?
Yeah, because he's good and he knows how to do it.
He's just that god.
Yeah, you need to know how to do it. There is a method. You can't just go out in a economical car. But so I think I agree with him. I would say for me it would be more than 5 cars, and you're just, obviously there are exceptions if you have need for all those cars. But if you just have them because you can, I think they're not being used.
Yeah.
And
But the joy of this job is you get to drive a variety of things.
That's the thing, and I get to work with them as well, which is Yeah, it's great.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is that. You can
man.
check out Sergi's works, as I said, on the Autocar's YouTube channel. And
Yeah,
subscribe to the Cars That Made Us
subscribe.
to see what cars made other people as well. So,
Thanks,
yes,
man.
Thank you
It's been
for coming
great.
on.
Yeah. It's a great location for it. Caffeine and Machine.
I know, yes, we're at Caffeine and
great.
Machine.
I like how we say this at the end.
Why are we saying this at the end?
Well, I mean, it is, we're tucked away in a corner, but
Yeah.
it is a great place,
We'll do some.
Anyone's just come
I'll
around.
do some voiceover so people know at the start
Yeah.
that we're
we
here.
are. Yeah. But it's been great, man. Thank you for having me very much. And
Absolutely.
look
Yes.
forward to talking to you again sometime.